sports. You say, hey, when there's a problem, you call a man. The Democrats can't even tell you what a man is.
So when you hear Walz brag about how much of a man he is, what does that tell you?
I think there might be a little bit of a cope there, you could say. There's a little bit, he has to remind us how masculine he is, trying to not even be able to load a shotgun or...
We're getting scary close to people justifying totalitarian measures.
I think we need to push back on this.
Tim Walz in the campaign trail was literally saying free speech doesn't include hate speech and misinformation.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Hey man, you, because everything that we called misinformation just a few years ago, it's on the front page of the New York Times now.
Joe Rogan and Charlie Kirk didn't just challenge Tim Walz, they obliterated him. What was supposed to be a debate turned into a demolition. Walz showed up armed with tired slogans and political fluff, but Rogan and Kirk brought relentless logic, razor-sharp wit, and zero patience for nonsense. It wasn't a conversation, it was a takedown. By the end, Walz wasn't just out of arguments, he was out of breath. All that remained was stunned silence and the rubble of his narrative.
Rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. There has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power.
The New York Times just printed a thing. Turns out we were lied to.
They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
Yeah, you lie.
The most masculine thing that someone can do in America today is stand up for women that are not able to stand up for themselves.
Right.
So while Tim Walz is going on Gavin Newsom's podcast, attacking me, by the way, saying that I'm a bad guy, well, I'm sorry, Governor Walz. One thing that we don't have in common is, unlike you in Minnesota, I, every single day, am actually fighting for female privacy in locker rooms and that women's sports will not have men in them. Real men stand up for women when they're not able to.
Joe Rogan and Charlie Kirk aren't exactly known for subtlety, and when they set their sights on Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, it's less a debate and more a public dissection. Picture two expert mechanics dismantling a broken machine live on stage. Rogan swings in with the hammer of raw experience and unapologetic common sense, while Kirk slices through spin with cold, sharp facts. Together, they don't just challenge Walz's record, they turn it into a live cautionary tale. Piece by piece, flaw by flaw.
Did you say you could fight any Trump supporter?
Yeah, he says he kicked their ass, and they're scared of him because he could fix a truck. Like they're threatened by his masculinity. I know how to fix a truck. That's what he said. Like, do you? I bet you don't.
The lady doth protest too much.
I bet you don't.
I fear.
I bet if I bring a broken truck to you and a bag of tools, you're...
Joe Rogan approaches politics like a man who's seen one too many smoke and mirrors. Accent, he's not buying the show. Polished speeches and photo ops don't impress him. He's all about results, consequences, and cutting through illusion with cold reality. And with Tim Walz, illusion is the problem. Rogan breaks down Walz's leadership like he's exposing a conspiracy theory that somehow got elected, scrutinizing every flaw, questioning every promise, and making it painfully clear that the emperor has no clothes.
You have Tim Walz doing the exact same thing.
Right.
Exact same thing. And
Yes.
he said, of course, it's a Nazi salute. He said that.
Right.
We spent 3 days debating, having them trying to debate that President Musk gave a Nazi salute. Of course he did. But that is a distraction.
This is how crazy things have gotten. Like,
It's cool.
Rogan sees a leader, more obsessed with optics than outcomes, a man fixated on perception, yet clueless about the real-world impact of his policies. He doesn't hold back, starting with a laugh at the sheer absurdity of Tim Walz's pandemic performance, while Rogan has spent years talking to doctors, scientists, and everyday Americans. Walz treated the crisis like a casting call, playing the role of emergency manager in a political drama, more concerned with camera angles than consequences. The result? A performance that fooled no one paying attention.
that video?
No.
This is what people love about Donald Trump. The fact that he would say this.
But unfortunately, Governor Walz isn't here himself, but don't worry, he'll say that he was. He's going to say he was. I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have, period, but then I met Tim.
Minnesota became a strange paradox. Gyms shuttered, yet big box stores buzzed with activity. And Joe Rogan wasn't about to let that slide. With his signature mix of curiosity and sarcasm, he tears into the logic. How does a virus magically avoid retail aisles, but go full throttle in barbershops and mom-and-pop diners? It only gets better when Rogan tackles Governor Walz's obsession with control. He mocks the way Walz clung to his emergency powers like a toddler gripping the TV remote. No flexibility. No nuance, just a fear-fueled rulebook with zero room for common sense. Rogan compares it to running a city with the judgment of a bunker-bound weatherman calling hurricanes from his basement. The more absurd the mandates, the more Walz doubled down and the more Rogan grinned, highlighting each boneheaded decree like a man gleefully watching a low-budget sci-fi movie fall apart in real time. But Rogan isn't just cracking jokes, he gets serious. He contrasts Walz's Fantasyland leadership with the harsh reality on the ground. The small businesses that closed and never reopened. The livelihoods lost under a script written for show, not survival.
I represent right with Tim Walz.
I know I'm doing something right when the Fox News crowd is all pitching at me like crazy. Like, I'm loving it.
That guy was almost the vice president of the United States.
Elon Musk was crying last week. Tim is being mean to me, base. You know, like, yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that thing where it shows Obama saying, I need a vice.
Families torn apart by confusion. Health directives that changed weekly and contradicted themselves. Joe Rogan lays it all out like a jigsaw puzzle only. The pieces are from 5 different boxes. And somehow Tim Walz still insists it's a masterpiece. Then Charlie Kirk steps in, sleeves rolled up, receipts in hand. Where Rogan brings street smart, wisdom and biting humor, Charlie brings precision and fire. He's not there to joke, he's there to prosecute. And the defendant, a governor whose biggest confession is written in the wreckage of his own policies. Charlie goes straight for Walz's economic record, or, more accurately, the gaping void where a strategy should have been. Under Walz, Minnesota became a real-time experiment in how fast you can scare investment out of a state. Charlie paints a brutal picture of a governor who treats businesses like villains instead of the backbone of the economy, while other states were reopening, rebuilding, and getting back on their feet. Walz was busy issuing press releases about equity and climate justice, while Main Street was begging just to keep the lights on. Charlie finds it equal parts hilarious and horrifying, a tragic comedy playing out in real life, with livelihoods on the line.
Cocksucker, if that guy got into power, like if Kamala died and Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, was our fucking president, you know how crazy this country would be? That weirdo who puts tampons in the boys' room. And what about our joy? Like, he's a complete pathological liar. Like a complete liar. Lied about being in Tiananmen Square. Lied about being a fucking...
Charlie Kirk calls it leadership by press release, where the only thing growing in Minnesota is government spending and public confusion. Then he turns to Walz's handling of crime, treating it like a never-ending dark comedy. Under Walz, cities started to feel like they were being run by someone who learned law enforcement from viral tweets and bad Reddit takes. Crime spiked, police morale cratered, and the streets became testing grounds for progressive experiments gone horribly wrong. And through it all, Walz gave speeches about unity, while treating law enforcement like an optional feature in modern governance. Charlie doesn't hold back when he revisits Walz's response to the George Floyd riots. Instead of leading, Walz hesitated. Instead of standing firm, he stepped aside. Charlie paints the moment with biting clarity, like watching a man hold a fire extinguisher while the house burns, fumbling with the instructions instead of putting out the flames. To Charlie, Walz's crisis management wasn't just weak, it was reckless. He sums it up perfectly. The leadership style of a substitute teacher who shows up with a guitar and a dream, but no actual plan.
The J.D. Vance was weird. Yeah. Remember that one?
And then they just weirds everywhere.
Weird. Oh, you don't want a weird guy. Meanwhile, you have Tim Walz is your VP. Weird. You don't think that guy's weird? He's weird in every way. Yeah. The way he walks, the way he waves his hands.
Yeah, he reminds me of the clown emoji.
He's a bizarre guy.
He's a strange dude.
I just don't understand why they made that choice.
Yeah, it gives the creeps.
I just don't understand why they made that choice. There's a lot of other people that are qualified. I don't know why. I read that Kamala Harris made that decision.
Then Charlie Kirk turns his sights on education, and it's a brutal takedown. He highlights the collapse of Minnesota's school performance under Tim Walz, where test scores in reading and math plummeted while classroom ideology soared, stopped being about academics and started looking like a seminar in activism. Charlie mocks the absurd response. Instead of helping kids learn to read, Walz's administration hired more diversity officers and rolled out endless training modules. Students weren't taught grammar, they were taught how to journal about privilege. He nails it with one cutting line. Under Walz, schools became a place to learn everything except the basics. The only thing multiplying. Bureaucracy. Joe Rogan jumps back in with his signature fire. comparing Walz's leadership to a low-budget survival movie where the main character keeps walking past the clearly marked exit signs. Walz is the guy, Joe quips, who would spend 10 minutes drafting an email about safety protocols instead of helping someone who just fell down the stairs. He's always focused on the message, never the mission. Rogan brings a cultural punch, too, calling out the new breed of politicians like Walz who are so obsessed with saying the right thing on social media, they forget who they're actually supposed to serve. For Joe, that's the real failure, leadership that chases applause instead of results.
And they bring in this other guy who's radical from Minnesota. That's the vice president, who he believes a lot of wild things. One of them is transgender surgery for people who are under 13. Another one is abortion up until 9 months.
Ooh.
Yeah. He changed the Minnesota state flag to make it look like a Somali flag. That stuff scares the
And Tim Walz. He's running Minnesota like he's trying to go viral, not govern. Joe Rogan makes it painfully clear. Politicians like Walz aren't interested in real conversations or hard data. They just want applause from people who already agree with them. It's performance politics at its worst. Charlie Kirk delivers the final blow with a line that hits like a sledgehammer. Walz is the perfect example of what happens when a governor tries to run a state like a graduate seminar. All theory, no practice. All talk, no traction. Then he adds, Minnesota isn't a TED Talk. It's a real place with real people. But Walz treated it like a sandbox for elite ideas that crumbled the moment they hit reality. In the end, Joe and Charlie don't just criticize Walz, they demolish him. Rogan lands punchlines so sharp you forget it's political commentary, while Charlie hits with data-driven precision that leaves no escape route. Together, they expose a governor who talks like a reformer but governs like a guy who accidentally won a contest to run a state for a week. What makes the takedown so devastating isn't just the humor, it's that every joke, every observation, every jab is rooted in undeniable truth.
That's with Newsom. Why don't you go throw the pigskin with Walz? What do you say?
I think it's a great idea. I'll fly up to Minneapolis. We'll see what it's all about, Governor Walz. You're Mr. Coach. You're the one that can.
Tim Walz built his political career on slogans, smiles, and a media that rarely pushed back. But under the heat of Joe Rogan's scrutiny and the crushing weight of Charlie Kirk's logic, that polished image crumbles. And when it does, there's no need for theatrics, just two guys with microphones, a mountain of common sense, and zero patience for politicians who confuse emotional optics with actual results. They don't just roast Walz, they dismantle his entire political blueprint. It becomes a museum of bad ideas. And the tour, free, hilarious, and devastatingly honest. Charlie Kirk isn't done, not even close. He shifts the spotlight to Walz's bizarre obsession with building a perfect society through government micromanagement. According to Charlie, Walz governs like a man who just finished reading a utopian novel and mistook it for a state policy handbook. Every issue becomes a social experiment. Every problem is met with another committee, another task force, until people forget that nothing's actually getting done. Charlie drives the point home. Walz's leadership is built on the belief that government knows best, better than parents, better than business owners, better than law enforcement. And that belief, Charlie argues, is exactly why everything keeps falling apart.
I think it would be very similar to Barack Obama throwing a baseball. I don't think it would be a sight that would be easy on the eyes. That's right, I could throw quite a tight spiral. Hey, Governor Walz, let's go have a game of catch. We'll see how you do.
Better than reality itself. That's where Charlie says Tim Walz truly shines. In failure. Because the moment a politician believes they're the smartest person in every room, they stop listening. And when they stop listening, they start losing the plot. That's Joe Rogan's cue. He jumps back in, this time laser-focused on Walz's uncanny ability to spin every blunder as if it were part of some master plan. Joe compares it to a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, then trying to convince the audience it was supposed to be a porcupine all along. Walz's speeches, Rogan says, they're like someone reading motivational posters aloud while the city burns behind them. All feel-good phrases, no substance, no urgency. And the real kicker, Walz never acts until it's too late. He's not proactive, he's reactive. But somehow, every time something collapses under his watch, he takes the mic like he just uncovered the issue, and you should be thanking him. Joe nails it with a brutal metaphor. Watching Walz lead is like watching a guy shatter a window, then give a heartfelt speech about the importance of glass safety. It's not just tone deaf. exhausting, and people are done pretending it makes sense.
Just weird and how avoidable it was.
100% avoidable, but pathological liars, people that are habitual liars, they just lie all the time about it.
Charlie takes direct aim at Walz's total refusal to take responsibility. The man, he says, has a PhD in blame deflection. Whenever something goes wrong, it's never his fault. He points fingers at the federal government, local officials, climate change, Mercury in retrograde, anyone but himself. Charlie even jokes, if Walz tripped over his own shoelaces, he'd blame the shoe industry and call for a statewide task force on walking safety. Accountability, in Walz's world, is just a buzzword, something he sprinkles into press conferences when the cameras are rolling, not something he actually practices. Joe Rogan follows up with a sledgehammer of his own, calling out the massive disconnect between Walz and the people he's supposed to serve. There's no empathy, no real-world awareness, just headlines, advisors, and whatever's trending online. Joe nails the comparison. It's like trying to run a farm based on Yelp reviews. Everything might look good from the outside, but inside it's chaos and the cows are missing. Then Charlie delivers the final blow, a brutal summary. That leaves no wiggle room. Walz isn't just out of touch. He's out of depth, out of answers, and out of time.
Cognitive decline problems at his age, but at her age, she's just dumb.
Yeah, Biden and
I think I was saying that
I
on
need
your
a vice president dumber than me.
great.
Kamala Harris may be the dumbest person ever elected vice president in American history.
Kamala saying, I need a vice president dumber than me, and it's Walz. Men have tampons.
We have a lot of accomplishments. We haven't taken adequate credit for it, frankly. We got to do a better job of getting the word out about what we have accomplished and who did it.
You got to lose because we got to break this.
Tim Walz isn't the governor of the people, he's the governor of press conferences. He's more focused on shaping narratives than delivering results. His greatest talent, turning political failure into soft-spoken disappointment, as if whispering, bad news somehow makes it less catastrophic. But no polished tone can cover the damage. Minnesota, once proud, functional, and thriving, has become the stage for Walz's never-ending seminar in what not to do. By the end, Rogan and Kirk don't just deliver a political roast, they perform a full-blown autopsy. And the cause of death? Too much control, too little awareness, and a governor who mistook power for progress.